Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad you can join us today for one of my favorite topics. It's something I need a lot of help with, and that is organizing. I'm very delighted to introduce Jody. Jody, I'm saying I'm introducing you, but really I'd love it if you could tell everybody a little bit about you.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Jody Granoff. I'm a professional organizer, certified professional organizer as of a couple weeks ago, a productivity consultant and speaker based in St. Louis. And I started my company, Organizing Magic, back in 2008. And I work with overwhelmed people to get their homes and offices and lives organized. And I love going around to people's homes and businesses in the St. Louis area, but thanks to technology like Zoom and Facebook, I'm able to work with people no matter where they live in the country or even the world. And the same is true for my speaking engagements. But I'm really glad to be able to share this information with my hometown St. Louis people today. So we're going to talk today about paperwork. And I'm going to break this into two parts. We're going to start by talking about some tips on how to declutter some of the mail that still comes to you, the postal mail or the snail mail. And then we're going to focus on the paperwork that's already in your house, the existing paperwork in your home or your office. I'm going to tell you what answers I typically get when I ask this question at other presentations or from my clients when I go to visit them. Some of them should sound familiar. So kitchen counter, very popular answer, as is the dining room table. Someone said this too, if you have already a designated spot like a bin or a basket. But what we're trying to avoid, Sharon, is the red flag answer of in a bag that I toss in the closet if company.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. So here's the problem with that. A lot of times we forget to go back and retrieve the bag after the company leaves. And then you get someone like me who comes over, let's say, to organize that closet 6 months later, and we find not only one bag, but maybe 2 or 5 or 10. And the problem with that, especially if it had mail in it, is there could be time-sensitive things like a traffic ticket you didn't pay on time, or a summons for jury duty, or a bill that now you have late fees on. And sometimes those late fees cost more than the original bill themselves. So if you have a problem with the mail piling up, then you're in the right place. We're going to talk about how to control the incoming mail first off, because if you can cut down on how much mail you're getting, help cut down on some of the paperwork in your house in the future. Obviously, you have a current pile that we're going to address in our next topic. So the number one thing you can do to cut down on your postal mail is to cancel any unread newspaper or magazine subscriptions. And these have a way of sneaking up on us. You know, we might have signed up for one magazine a long time ago, but then we buy something online and it gives us this offer for like a really cheap deal on a couple more magazines. And before you know it, you've got all kinds of paid subscriptions in your house. And I can't tell you how many clients I've gone to their homes and see this huge pile of reading material. And they'll look at me kind of sheepishly and say, I know I got to catch up on my reading. Well, I don't know anyone who's ever taken their vacation days to catch up on their reading, right? If reading becomes an obligation or a chore or something that you dread, that's not a good sign, right? Reading should be something enjoyable for the most part. So use the type of publication as your boundary. If it's a daily newspaper, if it's a weekly magazine, a monthly magazine, you have until the next one comes as your guide. So if you have 3 daily newspapers in your house right now, you're already 2 days behind. So when you notice that you have a stack of the same magazine or the same newspaper, that might be a sign that it's worth canceling that subscription, because you can get a lot of money back when you cancel those subscriptions, because they will refund you the rest of the money that you know, we're paying up front for these subscriptions. So what can you do instead is you can switch to reading a lot of these things online. So a lot of publications have a website, and oftentimes it's free. Sometimes you may have to pay, but you're going to get that information a lot faster in real time than you would have if you'd waited for your weekly magazine, for example. So consider making that switch, because then you can read on your time the amount you want to read. And if you don't read it one week, it's okay. You're not paying for it anymore. If you're getting investment statements mailed to your house, you can talk to your financial person and ask if you could just get it sent to you by email or look on an online statement instead. Or you can ask for them to mail you quarterly statements instead of monthly statements, and that will cut down on the amount of mail you're getting as well. And then a lot of times, some of the things we get in the mail are time sensitive. So once you've entered the pertinent information, if you were invited to an event or a party, or you bring home someone's business card because you met them, or met someone at a networking thing, once you enter their information into your phone or enter the event onto your calendar, you really don't need that piece of paper anymore, unless it specifically says something like, bring this flyer with you to get $1 off your first soda or something. So then let's talk for a moment about shredding versus recycling. So I have a lot of clients that tell me I have to shred every envelope that has my name and address on it. And if that's you, I'm not going to tell you that you have to stop doing that. But if you're looking for a reason to stop doing that, it's not necessary. Your name and address are pretty much public information that you can find online very easily, even in a Google search. So when we talk about shredding sensitive information, I don't really consider your name and address to be in that category. What is sensitive information is things like your date of birth or any medical information about yourself, or things that have account numbers or your social security number. Those are the kind of things that you would want to shred versus recycle. And when you shred, you want to make sure you have a more newfangled shredder, because some of the old ones are still out there. The kind that make crosscuts like confetti, like this person's hand is showing, versus the kind that makes strips, because that is not, that's not the best way to shred something. You could still put it together if you really wanted to. If you saw the movie Argo, you know what I'm talking about. Now, if you want to cut down on tons of junk mail, like the person who said they hit the, recycling bin before they even come in the house, go ahead and take a screenshot of this slide, or open up a new browser window and come to us. DMAchoice.org is not free. It is $2, but it's worth it, I think, because your subscription lasts for 10 years. So what is DMAchoice.org? They help you get rid of a lot of junk mail so that it doesn't come to your house anymore. So what you do is you visit their website. This is a screenshot of their homepage. And you create an account for yourself, a username and a password. They will send you a confirmation email, and you'll click a link in that email and you go right back into their site. You pay the $2, and then they're going to show you all kinds of lists. So for example, they'll show you a list of free catalogs. And you can cherry pick and say, I don't want this catalog or this catalog, the rest are fine. Or you can do what I do and do a blanket statement, I don't want any catalogs at all. So this is something I've done for years now. And for a long time, my husband wasn't doing it and I was, and you could really see the difference in the amount of mail that came to our house. When we moved last November, I decided to splurge and buy him a subscription, again, $2. And there are days that we don't get any mail coming to our house, which is really nice. So consider DMAchoice.org if you really feel overwhelmed by the amount of junk mail that you're getting. Credit card offers and catalogs and political ads and all that kind of stuff can be wiped out with a service like this.
Jody, is that only paper mail, or would that also include emails?
So there are some things on their site that talk about, like, I think also the phone calls and things. I have not found that to be as successful. So I would say this is primarily related to mail. Okay, so if you're like me, you may still be getting some bills in the mail. Not everybody does, but if you're getting postal mail that includes bills, there are some things that you can do to keep that paperwork organized as well. So the first thing is you want to open your mail and your bills right away, even though you're not paying them necessarily that day, but just to get rid of all the junk that comes with it. You know, a lot of times there's a lot of inserts in that mail that you don't need. It's a good idea to keep some kind of shelf or basket or container or area where you have all your bill paying supplies together. So for me, I have a basket that has my bills I need to pay, but it also has my checkbook and calculator, a pen, some stamps, some return address stickers. That way, when I'm ready to pay bills, I'm organized and I don't have to go all over the house looking for it. And then if you really want to cut down on your mail, you can switch to online or automatic payments. So an online payment means you're getting an email or a text from your creditor saying, hey, it's time to pay your bill. And you'll log into the account on your computer or your phone, and you'll take care of the bill. An auto payment we're going to talk about in an upcoming slide. Okay, now a lot of my clients have ADD, and so they struggle with time management, and sometimes they just forget to pay their bills on time. So if you're struggling with that, here's a few tips. One is make a list of all your bills and when they're due. So where you keep all your bill paying supplies, you might have a little notepad where you're logging the bills as they come in. And then you can take those due dates and put them on your calendar, whether it's a paper calendar or your phone calendar. And you can set reminders for yourself so that you make sure you're paying it in enough time that it either gets there automatically or there's time for it to get there in the mail, right? If you are having trouble with the cash flow in the month. I know this happened to me when I was first starting out as a young adult working person. Too many of my bills were due at the same time and I was getting paid twice a month. So you can call some of your creditors and move the payment date to a different day of the month so that there's a more even distribution with your paydays. And then this is about auto pay. So I only recommend auto pay if you're someone that always has a cushion of money in your bank account. If you're kind of spending it all down from a paycheck, this might not be as good an option. But as long as you feel like you have a comfortable cushion in your account, auto pay, basically you're telling your creditor, I'm giving you permission. You don't even have to tell me my bill's due. On the X day of the month, you automatically take X amount of dollars out of my bank account. So I recommend this when you have something that's the same amount every month. So like a house payment or your rent or your car payment or student loan. And again, if you have the funds to cover it, it can really take away the stress of, oh my gosh, should I pay this bill on time? Especially if you travel or you're on vacation, you don't have to worry about, did I pay the bills while I was gone? So that is the end of our first part about the mail. And I want to see if there's any questions or comments just on that part before we get into the rest of the paperwork.
There's a question and a couple of comments. One of the comments I really like was about, you were talking about magazine subscriptions, and we've got somebody reminding us that you can get a lot of magazines free at the library. And I think that's such a nice way to think about all that paper is, what can you get for free that you don't have to have at your house and piling things up? Then you take what you want and you move in there and you get that one.
It's also free in the grocery store line and at the beauty, the nail salon. So you can save your, reading your favorite things for when you're at one of those kind of appointments too.
I love that thought. And then we have a question about, is there a way to get off the list for those flyers and coupons that come in the mail every few weeks? They said it as an example, the Subway in their area doesn't even accept them, and they contacted Subway corporate, but they just keep coming. And I know I get the value pack, I think it is, with all the coupons, and I never use them.
So I would definitely check with DMA Choice. I haven't logged in for a while because once you set it up, it just kind of works. But I don't recall getting those anymore.
Interesting.
And I think the only reason that we were getting them for so long is because my husband wasn't signed up, and I think it was coming to him. I
That's
don't
really
even think,
interesting. So you both have to make sure they don't come to you so that they don't slip it in through his name then.
yeah, if you're, one of the things I like about DMA Choice is that you can do a lot of permutations on your own name. I think they would know if I had done my name and my husband's, but let's say my name was Kathy. I could put in there Kathy with a K, Kathy with a C, Catherine with a C or a K, and or K, Kay, and it would take off all of them. With one account. I wouldn't have to have multiple accounts for that, but
That's a good tip.
I think it might be worth it to spend $4 instead of $2. And
Yeah, it's a pretty good price, I have to say.
it's for
And then
10 years, for 10 years. So that's
yeah.
really good. Yeah.
There's one more comment saying, I recently heard about the Ohio method for emails, only handle it once. And it sounds very applicable to what you're talking about with the mail. So that's a nice acronym.
And I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think it's okay to touch something more than once as long as you're doing it with a purpose. But if you do pick it up, it should go somewhere. So like I can pick it up and say it's going in my bill basket because I'm not ready to pay the bills yet. But the next time I go and get the basket, it's because I'm going to pay bills. So I don't want to be too much of a stickler, and because that can throw people off too. And they're like, oh no.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Now, hopefully your paperwork doesn't look like this. It probably feels like this. So here's what I noticed the most. When I go to people's homes or offices, and they will usually say to me, Jody, I know how to file, right? I know how to make folders for stuff. And I used to file, but I don't do it anymore because I can't. My filing cabinet is full. My file box got full, and now I just have all this loose paper near the other stuff or in a totally different room. So there's 2 secrets to paperwork that most people don't know. And I'm going to tell you both of them, and then you're going to be a paper master. So here's the first one. You need a filing system that has expiration dates. It's not the filing system that's the problem for people. It's that they didn't have expiration dates. So you might be thinking, what the heck is an expiration date? I'm going to tell you. So no matter if you're using a file box like this, accordion file, a big filing cabinet, or a filing cabinet drawer, doesn't matter. That's your filing system. To make your expiration dates, the first thing you do is you ask an expert, which is not me, but you're going to ask an expert for expiration rules. So you're going to go to your bookkeeper, the person that does your taxes, your lawyer, your accountant, your friend who's good at this, I don't know. You're going to say, how long do I keep? And you list the different kinds of paperwork that you have. So you would say, how long do I keep a credit card statements? How long do I keep receipts? How long do I keep utility bills? How long do I keep doctor receipts for visits? How long do I keep EOBs? Whatever it is, there's probably going to be a different answer for every kind of thing that you said, and you write that down. And now you're going to make new folders. So even if you know you've got Commerce Bank buried somewhere in a box, don't worry about it. If you've got loose papers on your table or counter, start a new folder. It says Commerce Bank, and then put the expiration date, whatever your expert told you. So it could say Commerce Bank, 72 years. I'm not saying that's the right answer. I'm exaggerating, right? So whatever they tell you, some folders, they might say 3 years or 7 years, 1 year, 5 years. They might all be different. You're going to write on the folder what kind of account it is, what the expiration date is. Now you're going to focus not on the old paperwork that's put away somewhere, but the stuff that's loose and out. You're going to start putting that paperwork into your new folders that have the expiration date. And you're going to put them in order chronologically with the oldest stuff on the bottom, newest stuff on the top. And as you're doing that, some of your paperwork, even on the table, may not make the cut. Because if you had a folder that said 3 years and the paper you're holding in your hand is 5 years old, it's not even going to make it into the folder. It's going to make it into either your recycling pile or your shredding pile, depending on what it is. So after you do that, and you make sure that the newest stuff is on top, you do that with all of the loose papers, make a whole bunch of folders. Then you can go back to your old set of files. So go into that file cabinet and you may find that you had 5 different other Commerce Bank folders. That's fine. You're going to merge them into your new one that has the expiration date, because again, a lot of it's not going to make the cut. And a lot of those folders may not make the cut at all because they may be for things you don't have anymore. Credit cards you don't have anymore, papers for a car that's like 3 cars ago, or a house that's 2 houses ago. So you'll get rid of a lot of old stuff. Plus, as you merge stuff, you'll get rid of more stuff. And guess what? Now your filing system is going to have room for all the folders that you just made. So even if you did all of that, you would still outgrow your filing system again over time without one more step. And that is, you have to have a maintenance program. You have to have a day to get rid of those expired papers. So you need 1 day a year where you're going to deal with the expired paperwork. Because remember, if you said 3 years on this folder, next year, there's going to be a year's worth of paperwork that's too old now. So for me, the easiest way to remember this is to choose January 1st, because I don't know about you, but I don't do a lot on January 1st. I might sleep in, I might have brunch with my husband, maybe we watch a football game, but there's going to be some period of time in the afternoon where there's not a lot going on. So I go to my file cabinet and I weed out a year's worth of paperwork from all my folders. So let's say that you go to this one folder and it says 2 years on it. Well, chances are January 1st, 2022, you had 2021 in it and 2020 in it, but you also have 2019. So you can get rid of all the 2019. So then in the course of 2022, you're going to be adding that 3rd year again. Then you get to the next January 1st, you pull the oldest year out again. So every year you're going through all your folders, pulling out the oldest year that doesn't fit in the expiration parameter. And maybe you catch a folder here and there that you forgot it last year. So there's actually 2 years you have to take out. But as long as you're doing that regular maintenance, you shouldn't outgrow your files, and they should always fit in your file cabinet. Plus, when you're checking your file cabinet every year, you'll also catch, oh, this is for a credit card I don't have anymore. This is for a car I don't have anymore. So you'll be able to get rid of those folders as well. So now I want to give you some filing tips beyond what I just said. This is more for work. Don't inherit someone else's file headings, because we all call things by a different name. So just as an example, the thing that you drive yourself to work in, we all call it something different. So you may be thinking car, 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 and you don't see the file folder in your drawer because it was called auto by somebody else. So make sure that you're choosing headings that make sense to you. So if you buy one of those filing systems where they've already pre-named the labels and you don't like what they call it, you can change the label. Try to avoid using paper clips to hold your papers together because they tend to grab other pages for the ride, and that could cause an important paper to get lost in a totally different folder because it just happened to be next to this other piece of paper. So use a stapler instead. But if you're trying to keep track of a big stack of paperwork, it's better to use a binder clip to hold them together than a rubber band, because as you can see from the picture, rubber bands disintegrate over time. They leave a big mess. They also can leave a sticky residue or a stain on your papers when they disintegrate. It's not a good idea to keep your paperwork folded up or even inside the original envelope, because all that does is add bulk to your filing cabinet. So you can actually free up a lot of space if you did nothing else than to just unfold everything. Now, I know sometimes, most of our paper is letter size, and occasionally we get some legal paper and it's too big for a filing cabinet. And it's okay to kind of fold that last third over if you need to make it fit. But in general, you want to try not to fold things because it does take up more room that way. Don't procrastinate until you have a big, huge pile of papers. This is more for going forward after you fixed it. I know some of you already have that big pile of papers. You're like, why are you stressing me out now, Jody? But this is in the future. You want to just try to spend 5 or 10 minutes at the end of a day or at the beginning of the day and just put some things away. It doesn't have to be all of it. Just chip away at it. That's my biggest tip about paperwork in general. A lot of us think we have to have this magical pocket of time where we can start and finish and do all of our paper and solve it all in one day. And because that magical amount of time doesn't really exist, that's what makes people avoid trying to deal with their papers. They'll say, well, I'll never get this done. Well, you don't have to finish. You just have to start. Just spend a few minutes a day putting papers away and you will catch up. Don't overstuff your file cabinet. We've already talked about how to fix that, because we're going to go through our files once a year and get rid of things when they're expired. I like to think about paperwork in terms of hot and cold. Sometimes hot, warm, and cold. Hot would be the stuff that I need to access all the time. So I really don't want to totally put it away. And that's okay. But you still want to keep it fairly organized instead of just a loose pile on your desk. Cold is more like the things that I'm holding because I need to for a certain amount of time. And that's where we get into the file cabinets. If you need a medium category between those two extremes, some people, for example, at work, they might have a cold storage for the whole office. They might have their hot center on their desk. And then warm might be the files they need maybe once a month. And so that's in that bottom drawer where you have a little mini filing cabinet. So this is called Pendaflex PalSmart Project Sorter System. It's a mouthful, but it is really a great product. It's basically just a sorter, and it has these lovely elastic bands here that hold all the papers in so they don't fall out. So this is a picture one of my clients sent me after she ordered one, because you can get them on Amazon pretty quickly. And you could sort anything you want. You've got 10 categories here. So you could say bills that are due the first of the month, or menus, or charitable donations, or summer camp plans, or it could be different doctors. It could be whatever you want. You get 10 of them, and then you just put the papers behind the category and then close it up with your elastic band, and you could take this with you wherever you need to go. If you need to go to work, if you need to go to a doctor's appointment and you want to have all this, corresponding paperwork, you just bring it with you, and it's, it's not going to fall out when you have the elastic bands on it. So it's really nice. I won't say that everything fit into the PalSmart in this person's picture, because obviously the water bottle is not in there and the wet wipes and the duct tape, but a lot of this paperwork ended up in here afterwards. Well,
Jody,
again,
how does the paper get connected? Is it a ring? Is it a
no, it's just loose. It's totally loose.
Oh, it's loose.
Yeah. So you write the categories you want, and they give you a few extra papers of those, so you can change it later if you don't like what you chose. But the difference
it's almost like a file folder.
It's like a file folder, but you can have a whole bunch of papers that you wanted to keep on your desk because you were worried that you were going to lose track of them, but you lost track of them anyway because they got buried under everything else. But now they're organized because they're in categories. You got your 10 tabs. So it's called PalSmart because you're making a pile of paper, but it's organized. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm telling you is, if you've got a big mound of paperwork and you feel overwhelmed, all you have to do to get organized is commit to about 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes. You set a timer and you start doing the stuff we talked about. You are making the folders, you are putting things in the folder, you're checking the expiration dates, whatever it is you're doing. 15 minutes, when the timer goes off, if you're in a groove and you feel like doing more, you can always reset the timer for another 5, 10, 15 minutes. But if you're overwhelmed, like, oh, that was hard, that's okay. You did 15 minutes and that counts. And just try to do that several days during the week. And it does add up over time. And you will find that the deeper you get into a pile of old paperwork, usually the easier it gets, because you're going to find a lot of things that have come and gone. You're going to find circulars for stores and flyers for events that have already happened and coupons that have already expired. So it does get easier, I think, as you go. But you're just going to chip away at it. Don't think about finishing, just think about starting each day. Just spend a little bit of time on it and you will catch up. And of course, you need to remember to have your annual shredding date once a year to follow the rules that you made for yourself with those expiration dates on your folders. I just want to show you this real quick. I do have a newsletter that I put out from my company that comes out electronically. So it's an email newsletter through Constant Contact. It comes out twice a month, and each edition has one article that I've written about some form of organizing in your home or your office. There's always a lot of fun stuff in there. And when I have upcoming classes, I mention them in the newsletter too. If you are interested in getting this newsletter, you could always sign up on my website, or if you want to jot down my cell phone number, you can just text me your name and your email address, and I'll sign you up for you. And when you sign up, you get my list of favorite organizing tips as a free bonus. And you can always unsubscribe if you decide it's not to your liking. So any final questions that people have?
Yes, I've got a couple things here. One of them was just a tip, actually they're tips, that if you are filing your taxes electronically, that there's a cheat sheet on the number of years to keep each of the items that you're recording. So the IRS will tell you that right on their website. And if you're needing help with your taxes, don't forget that the ARC does free tax returns, and our experts can also give you that advice. So you don't have to be paying for another professional to do those things for you. We can help out with that.
I used to think that you're supposed to save your taxes for 7 years. And so I had gotten rid of a lot of my tax returns. And then I learned that actually you should save the most recent 7 years with all the supporting documentation and everything. But then you should always keep the actual, 1, 2, 3 page tax return forever. So now I keep my tax returns a little differently.
Oh, that is a good tip, because I am pretty sure I've thrown things away after 7 years. So
yeah, so the actual return, you may want to keep, but the supporting documentation, you could still follow the 7-year rule.
Okay. So we have a question about whether there should be a filing system for each child or all children in one binder. I do want to say before you answer that, for everybody on this webinar, that really, to me, the reason I asked Jody to join us is that I really talk to families a lot about managing your stress and trying to have systems that help you to have more happiness and calm in your lives. And I think all of this paper and all of these things can become such a trigger for stress. And I know so many of you have a lot, people that have a family member with a disability tend to have 10 times the paper, whether it's from the education system or the medical system. So I hope you can apply this through the lens of your own individual situation with your children, because if you have a child that has 6 medical specialists, you're probably going to want to have their own file. So Jody, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I do want to say that.
Oh, absolutely. Those are great points. So I would say that, first of all, organizing is like snowflakes. There's no one way to do an organizing project. I always tell people that my job is to come with a million different ideas, and your job is to tell me which one makes the most sense to you, because it doesn't matter if I set up a system for you. If it doesn't resonate with you, you're not going to keep it. So you really have to decide what makes more sense for your situation. You may decide, I'm going to have a whole folder that's all of our family's medical stuff. Or you may say, I have a folder with just one child, and the subcategories are all the different things like you were mentioning, where one folder is school related, one is this doctor, and one is this psychiatrist. So it really depends what's going to help you the most. you might take a product like this and say, this is our primary doctor folder for the whole family, and each person has their own tab. But you also might say, this entire thing is just for one child and all the different categories that go with that child. So whatever is going to make the most sense to you, that's what I would do. And you may have to try a little trial and error too, to find what you gravitate towards.
Yeah. And I think your answer probably answers our next question, which is about filing documentation, where you are in that sandwich generations where you've got mom at home plus children, one of whom has a disability. So you are providing a lot of different support to a lot of different people.
I think the key is that you definitely want to have some form of separation. I wouldn't have everybody necessarily in the same folder. Even if the category was for everybody, there should still be some subfolders to separate between people. Like if 3 generations of your family all went to the same dentist, I wouldn't necessarily put everybody's dental paperwork in the same folder.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Absolutely.
You can have a hanging folder with the dentist's name, but then you can have 3 manila folders with each person that went to that dentist.
So I'm going to make a shameless plug. If you want to move some of that paper out of paper format and move it into digital, we do have access for families with a member with a disability to get connected to something called Life Course Connect, which is a planning and problem solving platform where you would have your own site up in the cloud, where you would be able to not only put information that's a vital information about your family members, but also there's document uploading, and you can control who has access to those documents. But you could also select that for certain medical documents, it could go directly from your online site to your medical providers. Families in Missouri have access to that free for 1 year as part of a grant through UMKC. And we are the local affiliate to help you get used to it and help you manage stuff. So we want you to know about that. All right, I want to thank you, but I want to slip one more question in, because we do have a question about if you would recommend community shredding events or using your own shredder at home. So I want to get that.
Thank you. That is a great question. So when I say that once a year, you should go through all these folders and pull out a year's worth of paperwork, that is not what you want to put through your shredder. Your shredder should be, on a daily basis. Here's one, piece of mail I can shred. But when you've got a whole stack after a year's worth of taking out paperwork, that's not what your shredder is meant for. You'll burn out the motor. So you can either go to a community event, if there's one at your office. What my husband and I tend to do is we just go to the nearest FedEx Kinko's and we spend a nominal amount, maybe $10 or so, and they just shred it on site, like right then and there in front of us in a secure way. So, but certainly you can time it where there's going to be an event, or just keep it in a box until that event. But if your whole house starts to fill up with boxes that say shredding, that's a whole nother problem to have.
All right, you guys, thank you so much, Jody. This was so terrific. I really think this was wonderful. And thanks again, Jody. Have a great week.
Thanks for having me.